Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Bayless, and I'm the Civic and Social Information Services Library Services Supervisor with Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. I'd like to welcome you all to PublicSource Presents How to Be an Engaged Citizen, which is supported through generous funding from the Pittsburgh Foundation. This program is being recorded and live streamed to our Facebook page. Welcome, Facebook viewers. And all registered attendees will receive access to the slide presentation along with a link to the recording in the coming days. Before I turn things over to our presenters, I'd like everyone to read and agree to the following community agreements that we're going to add to our Zoom chat window, which have been written for this virtual event. By participating in today's program, you are agreeing to the following. Everyone in this virtual environment has the same fundamental values as I do, and I will not belittle or demean anyone in the space. Speak in I statements that do not generalize beyond my own experiences. Participants represent only themselves and are not representatives of social groups or political parties. Attending with the intention to engage with others and be in community, not to hurt each other or score points for argumentation. Don't oversimplify complex events or topics. Embrace the blurry or confusing parts of an issue. Listen harder when I disagree and notice my own defensive reactions, and to stay engaged rather than closed off to reach a deep point of understanding. Approach this virtual program with curiosity by asking questions rather than making assumptions about what others mean. And finally, challenge myself to say what I really mean by communicating directly, honestly, and genuinely. It's now my pleasure to turn things over to our two PublicSource presenters, Mila Sanina and Rich Lord, who will say a bit more about themselves as we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this virtual space, and many thanks to Jess and her team at the Carnegie Libraries for hosting us today. We will focus on how to be an engaged citizen and hope to equip you with the tools, tricks, and some advice on how to be an engaged and informed resident of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. I'm going to share a presentation with you now through share screen, and we'll go from there. All right. I hope you are able to see it. I'm going to present. So a bit about the agenda of today's presentation. We're going to talk a little bit, give a bit of an intro about local journalism and where PublicSource fits in. We're going to break down what does it mean to be an engaged citizen. That's my part. And then I'm going to segue into the presentation and pass on the baton to Rich, who's going to talk about tools, tricks, and tips to gather credible, fact-based, and publicly available information and understand how power operates in our region. You will also get some guidance on how to file a simple right-to-know request in case you want to go and dig further. I am hoping that the session is interactive, so throughout the presentation, please do not hesitate to submit your questions or comments. I will be monitoring them, but we will not be interrupting the session for the questions. However, at the end, we'll leave plenty of time to address everybody's question. So I hope that some of the people who have joined are familiar with PublicSource, but if we are not, PublicSource is a small newsroom. It's a nonprofit digital-first media organization dedicated to serving Pittsburgh and the region. PublicSource inspires critical thinking and bold ideas through journalism rooted in facts, diverse voices, and pursuit of transparency. Our values as an organization, we are trustworthy, we take a risk, we tell a story, we collaborate for the common good, and foster an inclusive workplace and journalistic platform. We distribute through our website at publicsource.org, through our newsletter. If you are not a subscriber, please consider signing up. and through our partners. We partner with the City Paper, we partner with Spotlight PA, we partner with Gazette 2.0, Next Pittsburgh, so you can see PublicSource stories throughout their platforms as well. If you're interested in supporting the work of PublicSource, please consider donating to our nonprofit newsroom at publicsource.org, but also consider telling your friends, family, colleagues about us. Word of mouth is one big way through which people learn about PublicSource and the journalism that we produce. A bit about, like, you know, where do you start when you talk about how to be an engaged citizen? I myself am going to start with a personal story. I became a U.S. citizen last year, and for my naturalization test, I had to go through a guidebook to prepare me for that test. Actually, the U.S. Naturalization Test Guidebook gives you all different ways in which you can be an engaged citizen. And these are all possible answers. To pass your test, you need to know at least 2 ways on how to be an engaged citizen, but I have given you all of the possible iterations and expression of how to be an engaged citizen. One is, please vote if you and register to vote, join a political party, help with a campaign, join a civic community group, give an elected official your opinion on an issue, call, email, write senators and your representatives. Run for office is another way that U.S. naturalization test says is a good way to be engaged. Serving on a jury when summoned, publicly support or oppose an issue or policy, write to a newspaper. Although, as you can imagine, with a disrupted media ecosystem, there are other media outlets such as ours, with whom you can engage and get your voice heard through a first-person essay or a tip that you can submit and journalists may pursue. And the last is an iteration of to stay informed. Stay informed is very important, although incredibly difficult these days. The media ecosystem has become increasingly fragmented. There are so many outlets. There are so many. The internet is really both an incredible resource with a lot of sources of information, but it's also overwhelming. So it's very important to read, consume credible news sources, watch news, use critical thinking skills, and use primary sources of information. I also want to note that the nodes of credibility, meaning like trust nodes through which the information travels, are very important. Today, especially given how fragmented the ecosystem is, people tend to trust credible brands, credible journalists who they know, and people who they may follow in their family or on social media and know personally. So that's the way to be an engaged from the big picture perspective. Now I'm going to pass it on to Rich Lord, who is going to talk about how to be an investigator and use tools and tricks on how to find primary source information. Rich, take it away.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mila, and thanks everybody for being here today. Welcome to the Public Source Newsroom. And I'm a reporter here. And, you know, it was a few years ago that I first heard the saying that a lie circles the globe before truth puts on its shoes in the morning. And I was really upset to hear that saying, and have been trying to disprove it in my own little way ever since. But, you know, in this era of internet being flooded with you know, bad information, highly partisan information, pretending to be news, just plain falsehoods. And in this era of reduced reporting staff and reduced resources at newspaper and magazines, you know, we do have a problem addressing the speed with which lies disseminate and the difficulty of distilling truth. You know, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization here at PublicSource. And, we and others are attempting to help fill the gap, but we're lean and mean still. And, we don't, the media ecosystem does not always bring you the volume of information that you might think you need to make decisions. Maybe you want to decide whether or not to vote for someone, but you don't have enough information. Maybe that somebody's asking you for a donation and you're saying, who the heck is this? Who knows? Maybe someone asks you out to dinner and you want to find out if they're a criminal or not. You may feel like you have fewer places to turn for reliable information now, even on public figures. But, like Mila mentioned, just as the internet has increased, I think, the volume of falsehood, it has also provided useful tools for getting primary information. And that's mostly what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be showing you some of those tools. I'm going to skip obvious but unreliable things like, Facebook, not going to teach you to use Facebook, and focus on how you can get firsthand public documentation. I'm also going to give you a quick tour of the right to know process in Pennsylvania, as Mila mentioned. And I'm going to introduce you to a public source product called Board Explorer that gives you a shortcut to basic information on like 500 decision makers in your community. I'm going to be moving pretty fast here, but we are going to, at the end, supply you with the links to all of the websites that I will be demonstrating for you today. And we're also going to bring, obviously, invite questions at the end. And the best way to learn about these primary information tools is to see them used and then use them yourself. So what I'm going to do is use them. I'm going to show you information tools that will cost you no money, will cost you nothing but time. And then you'll ask me questions and I'll do my darndest. It would not be fair, I think, when I was thinking about how to do this presentation, I'm thinking it would not be fair to kind of investigate some person who's not here to defend themselves. It wouldn't be fair to pick an audience member and dig through their public records. So I'm going to investigate myself and hope I don't learn too terribly much. And I'm going to have to do the screen share here, I think. See if I can pull that off. You should be seeing the Department of State website now. And say you start off knowing nothing about me except that I am except my name. My full name is Richard Edward Lord Jr. And the fact that I work for PublicSource. Let me move this little toolbar over for a minute. Say that's all you got. And you're thinking, okay, what is this PublicSource that's putting on this presentation? One place you can start is this site here, which is the Pennsylvania Department of State Business Entity Search site. And again, you'll get this link in the information at the end. But say you want to figure out what we are. Let's see if I can type. I'm going to put PublicSource in there, and we're going to search for, we're going to try to get a start on investigating PublicSource, but especially investigating this Rich Lord character. Here we are. We're listed in the Pennsylvania Department of State website. It gives you the full name of the organization. It tells you that we're a nonprofit. That's a useful piece of information. We are active. We are domestic, which means we are based in the state of Pennsylvania. This is the date we registered with the state, and it provides an address, but this address is old. So if you want to send me cookies, do not send it to that address. Look us up on publicsource.org. It also shows you that in 2015, we filed something called Articles of Incorporation describing ourselves. And for a modest $3 fee, you could request those and obtain and take a look at the public filing related to PublicSource. So you've learned an interesting piece of information here, which is that we are a nonprofit. And say, that whet your appetite and you wanted to learn more, you could go to a site called Guidestar, and Guidestar requires you to have to register and get a login, but it's free. And you could type this in there too. Guidestar is a nonprofit itself that obtains information that nonprofits have to file with the IRS, and Guidestar processes it and also makes it available in raw form. So if you typed in PublicSource, that's us, you would learn a little basic information about us here, and you'd be able to click on this link here that says Show Forms 990. That will get you access to the actual forms that we file annually with the IRS describing our finances. And you could learn a lot about us from those forms if you wanted to. You wouldn't learn much about me because it doesn't list employees. So let's get back to that. You're wondering, hey, this guy claims to be a reporter, but boy, has he ever been charged with perjury? You probably want to know that. So you can go to something called the Unified Judicial System of Pennsylvania web portal. And again, you'll get this link. You can go down and click on participant name. We're going to leave a couple of these things blank, but because we want as broad of a search as possible, we're going to put me in there. We're going to see if I have a criminal record first. So we're going to click on criminal down here. And what do we get? We get, oh my, a bunch of nefarious, or at least accused nefarious rich lords. But, you know, there's a Richard E. Lord down here. That matches me. There's another one down here. But it looks like those guys, let's see, were born in 1947, and I was not born in 1947. Oh, wow, that guy born in 1947 has been in a load of trouble. And so it looks like I am off the hook on the criminal front. Say I offered to drive you to Philadelphia and you wanted to find out if I was an overly aggressive driver. You could even look up my speeding tickets here. Although, you know, I think they must scrub them because I know I've had speeding tickets and yet I'm not seeing them here. I do see a Richard Edward Lord III, whose existence I found out about only by practicing this presentation, but no Richard Edward Lord Jr. So I think I'm off the hook there. And as you'll see, if you play around, it also offers you a look at civil cases against me. And let's search for that. And we do see civil cases against Richard Lords, but not Richard E. Lord. That, though, is not correct because there have been civil cases with my name on them, which we're going to find out about right now. Civil courts are not handled on a statewide level. They're handled county by county. Our county has a website for the Department of Court Records, which it's a pain in the butt to register for it, but you can use it. Once you do register, it's pretty useful. You can do a case search. I was logged in earlier, but it looks like it unlogged me. Let's get me back logged in. And let's try again. Let's hit a case search. And let's see if we'll go search by litigant name. And we're having a little trouble here. There we go. Search by litigant name, search all records. I'm going to put me in there again. You know, it should work just with Rich rather than Richard because it'll capture anything that has Rich, Richard, Ricard, Richardo, whatever in it. Let's see what we got. Okay, we have a couple of cases involving Rich Lord here. This is a family division case. It's a support case, child support case, and that guy was born in 1936. I'm not him. But what about this guy here? He was sued by the city of Pittsburgh in 2009. Let's see what that's all about. Okay, what do we got? We've got the city of Pittsburgh suing me when I was at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette years ago. And we've got access to the individual filings that were filed in that case. We can look at them. And if we had time to read them all, we would find out that I asked the city of Pittsburgh for a lot of information about all of the firefighters that work for the city, including date of birth, because I wanted to determine how many firefighters had faced criminal charges. There was a whole slew of problems involving firefighters that year. And the city said no, but the state said, yes, you should supply Rich with this information. The city then sued in order to prevent that. And my recollections are not 100%, but I think we ended up settling that, or I found other ways to get the story done, because you won't, if you look this up, see a definitive conclusion to this case. But so that's a civil case that you can look up and look at anytime you want via, again, freely available public records. I'm going to get rid of a couple of windows here, but Let's say, okay, you know now that I'm not a habitual speeder, I don't have a criminal record, I haven't faced too many civil allegations, but would you trust me to, give you legal advice or do your taxes or cut your hair? Obviously, unless you want this haircut, you would not want to trust me for that last thing. But you can look up and determine whether I am a licensed barber or a licensed anything else in Pennsylvania via this Department of State website, which will again be included in the information provided later. And let's go ahead and stick me in there. I think Rich should work. Let's see how many Rich Lords are licensed. And if I'm one of them, okay, you got an accountant, you got a couple engineers, but no Richard E. Lord. So alas, I am licensed to do absolutely nothing. But that's okay, because journalists are not licensed. They don't have to be licensed. Thankfully, we have the First Amendment, which essentially says the government shouldn't mess with us, and nor should they particularly honor us. We stay at arm's length from the government at best. But say, I'm going to tell you right now, even though I hung out in city council as much as anybody else in the 2000s, they never declared it Rich Lord Day in the city of Pittsburgh. I have never seen them give Mila Sinina the key to the city, but you don't have to believe that. You can look it up. And we're going to do that now. This is a site called Legistar. Both the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, as you'll see, have Legistar sites in which you can see any legislation that has gone before either Pittsburgh City Council or Allegheny County Council for like 20 years. And I'm going to stick myself in there. See whether I ever had, whether they ever did declare Rich Lord Day in the city of Pittsburgh. Oh, you know what? I got to put quotes around it, or else I'm going to get too much stuff. But if I do put quotes around it, I see, okay, I get one item that comes up. Looks like my name appears in what? The minutes of a council meeting in 2002. What could that have been about? Let's see. Do a Control F and search for me. Oh, there I am. Okay. Looks like then Councilman Alan Hertzberg said something about some writing we were doing at the time regarding subprime lending and foreclosures, which is nice to see. That is the only mention of me in City Council's records. But say you wanted to be sure that I hadn't been honored or dishonored in front of Allegheny County Council, you could do that right here. And nothing comes up, which is just fine. As I've been mentioning, they don't tend to honor reporters. Once in a while, they honor a reporter when they quit their job, but we also don't participate in politics as a rule as reporters. I did in the 1990s work for a period of time for a publisher who at one point gave several multiples of my salary to a candidate whose campaign I was covering, which presented some interesting challenges. But fortunately, at PublicSource, we don't have that problem. We stay the heck away from donating to or endorsing political candidates. You don't have to believe me. Well, you'll see, you sort of have to believe me. But if you wanted to see whether, say, I gave money to a federal candidate, you could do that at the Federal Election Commission website. Pretty good website. Again, link provided. I'm going to go ahead and stick my name in here. I may have to do it both ways, Rich Lord and Richard Lord here. Let's see. Oh no, I don't want to be a recipient. I want to be a contributor. And we do see that there are some Richard Lords who have contributed money to federal candidates. Let's limit the search to Richard Lords from Pittsburgh. And as you can see, it's picking up Richards and Riches. Even though I've only put in Rich, it's picking up Richards, which is good. I've been in Pittsburgh since I was in 4th grade, so presumably, 2nd grade. So presumably if I gave money to a political candidate, it would be from a Pittsburgh address. And we see that there have been no federal donations by rich lords from Pittsburgh, thankfully, especially since Mila's on the call. If we wanted to do the same at the state level, it's not as easy. The Pennsylvania Department of State has a campaign finance online lookup. You can click on contributions made. Before this call, I put in my name here. It's a really crummy search engine. It took like 5 minutes and it came up with nothing that was relevant at all. So I'm not going to put you through that. If I want to find out definitive information on state campaign finance, I tend to download the whole darn database and do this kind of this thing called a VLOOKUP in a spreadsheet and match different things to other things. And it's a real pain in the tail, which I'm sure is exactly how our state leaders like it. But in any case, fortunately, there are people who do that, including one of our partners, Spotlight PA. So I'm not going to put you through that, but you can definitely do it in your own time using the links we're providing. If you think this is bad, go to Allegheny County's campaign finance search. This is a travesty. You go to this page here, you click on campaign finance reports, you say you want to look for a candidate's, you find out who gave what to a given candidate. Let's just use Rich Fitzgerald. We can pick on him a little bit. You have to put asterisks around their name to designate that you want to, kind of like a wild card symbol. And assuming I'm spelling him correctly, yes, I think I am. Let's put a report year. Let's pick 2019 when he was last running for office. And what do you get? You get a whole bunch of filings. I'm going to click on Friends of Rich Fitzgerald here. You know, that one's not too good. That one's not too good. Let me go back. I'm going to click on that one. That one will give you 16 pages of information on Rich Fitzgerald's campaign finances, including a non-searchable list of his contributors and the dates and the dollars provided. This one's only 16 pages, but sometimes these run into the hundreds of pages. It's difficult to convert them into electronic form. When I did a lot more of this work, I used to actually go through and do all the data entry and sometimes hopefully get some help on that and then analyze who gave what to whom that way. But the county makes it pretty hard to really definitively understand who's giving what to whom in county politics. If, however, you live in the city of Pittsburgh, you're in a little better shape. There's a website called openbookpittsburgh.com, which the city controller's office set up. You can go here. You can type in, you can click on contributor and search for a given contributor. Now let's put me in there. Nothing under Rich Lord. Let's put Richard in just to make sure I didn't sneak in something under my full name. Nope, nothing there. Let's make sure this thing's working. I'm going to stick in a name. Let's see. William Benter. That's one that stands out. This guy gave $50,000 to Bill Peduto's campaign in 2007, and Bill gave most of it back when he dropped out of that mayor's race. So let's see if he's been given. Okay, we do see William Benter giving money to Dan Gilman, Deb Gross, Councilwoman Kevin Acklin when he ran for mayor in 2009, if anyone remembers that. Luke Ravenstahl, against whom Mr. Acklin ran. Patrick Dowd, Bill Peduto down here, a bunch of contributions to Bill Peduto. So you can see, using Open Book Pittsburgh, who's giving what to city council or city level political candidates. Another nice thing about this Open Book Pittsburgh, if I can get back to the beginning screen, you can look up what are called statements of financial interest. They're not particularly detailed or good, but they are all we have to really look at whether our political officials have outside sources of income. As you can see, not a lot of detail, does say what real estate Bill Peduto owns, indicates his campaign, indicates loans he has, and various boards or organizations he's a part of. If a candidate has a more complex, or if an official has a more complex set of finances, that may be reflected in these statements of financial interest. So that's valuable. And if you wanted to look at those for, say, someone who's not a city official, I'm going to show you the State Elections Commission, I'm sorry, State Ethics Commission website here. It has a number of different search functions, but the one I'm going to start with is statements of financial interest. We can go ahead and put anybody in here we want on the state level. Might as well put Thomas Wolf. Let's see if it's under Thomas or Tom. Oh, indeed it is. So we could look at some basic information on Tom Wolf's finances if we wanted to do so. I'm not going to do that for us right now, but because there's some other fun we can have, we can look at published orders. Obviously, you're not going to find anything relevant to your investigation of Rich Lord here, but let's just have some fun and put in, I don't know, our favorite Shakespeare character's name, see if anything comes up. And are we getting anything? Oh, indeed, we are. Okay, what is that? Oh, Anthony Hamlet, right. The final adjudication of the State Ethics Commission regarding the former superintendent of, or the outgoing superintendent of Pittsburgh Public Schools. So if you wanted to read the, the real information, not digested by a reporter, it's all here on the State Ethics Commission website. Another kind of fun thing you can do on this website, you may not know this, but public officials, if say they want to do something, say they want to vote on a contract and they know their cousin is the owner of the company and they want to find out, is that okay? Can I vote on a contract for my cousin's company? They can ask for an advisory opinion. And let me see if I can get, published advices, search for published advices. These aren't usually publicized. It's just done quietly, but it is all filed here on the State Ethics Commission website. If you wanted to put in your municipality, I'm just going to stick Penn Hills in there, even though I'm a Pittsburgher. You could see that in 2004, someone, let's see who this is. Someone involved with Penn Hills government named Sarah Werner asked for advice of the State Ethics Commission on a conundrum that person was facing. It looks like she was a school director for the Penn Hills School District. And you can see whether the State Ethics Commission said it was okay for her to do the thing she wanted to do. Okay, so I've digressed a little bit here, and I have unfortunately departed from my investigation of myself, but we'll return to that now. You saw earlier that the city of Pittsburgh sued me because I asked for stuff that they didn't want to give me. And maybe you want to know, what other kinds of crazy stuff does this guy ask for? Or, what does he get from the city of Pittsburgh? You actually could, and I hope you don't, but you actually could file right-to-know requests with governments and ask them to provide them with anything they've given to me. And for reasons that will become clear soon, I hope you don't do that, but you would do that using the state's right-to-know law. This is it. You'll get a link to it also. And basically it says a couple things. One is that any government record in Pennsylvania, including local government record, is considered open. The public has a right to it. That's the good part. The bad part is that there are literally 30 exceptions to that rule. And one fifth of this entire law is made up of exceptions. And some of them are very important and create real barriers to getting the information that we as reporters and maybe you as citizens want. But you can ask for whatever you want. I'm going to give you a couple of caveats on that, though. Government does not have to create any kind of record for you. You can ask for a record. You know that governments have budgets, governments have contracts, they have payrolls. They have meeting minutes. They have policies. Anything that they have that's a document, you can request it. They might then tell you, hey, such and such a policy is covered by an exception to the Right to Know Act, but it's their job to come up with the exceptions. You can still ask for it. When I am deciding to submit a Right to Know request, I'm thinking about a couple of things. I know that governments have limited manpower, limited staff assigned to this role, and I don't want to submit bad Right to Know requests that are unlikely to result in me getting information or that are overly burdensome compared to the value to the public of the information that I'm providing. I don't want a crummy Right to Know request from me to get in the way of a good Right to Know request from my colleague Charlie Wolfson, or from Paula Reed Ward at the Tribune Review, or from any of the other great journalists working in this town. So before I submit one of these things, I think through a couple of things. One is, do I have reason to believe that this document I'm planning on asking for actually exists? And I might have conversations to try to suss out what documents do and don't exist before I even submit a request. You know, how badly do I need these documents in order to do my job of informing the public? And finally, you know, is this a document that might already be online? Is it something I could get just by asking a spokesperson for it? Can I Google it up? I'll ask myself those questions, but sometimes the answer is no. I gotta ask for this under Right to Know. And what's an example of this? Well, you know, a couple of months ago, WESA reporter Kate Giammarisi and I were working on a story about housing conditions in McKeesport, in a complex owned by PNC Bank. And while we were visiting with tenants there, we noticed that some of them had reports showing that housing inspectors had been in their apartments and had written reports about what they'd found. And we thought, hey, there might be a lot of these reports. So we decided to ask the county health department for all of its documents for 4 years related to housing health code enforcement in these properties. And this is what it looks like, a standard Right to Know request to Allegheny County, in this case, health department. And I tell them, okay, you've got this law called Article 6. It says that you should be doing some stuff. Here's some addresses. And here's what I want: inspections reports, letters that were sent to the property owner, notices of violation, emergency orders, and documents indicating charges or other penalties. You know, this is a fairly complicated request, and I'm going to talk about simpler requests in a minute. Don't try this exact request at home, please. But this one, you know, resulted in some 800 documents being provided to us. We assembled a team that went through all those documents, that created a spreadsheet describing every one of these documents, and we analyzed them in detail, and we created a story that basically said there were hundreds of violations and only $2,500 in penalties paid by the owners of these properties over 4 years, despite, you know, gigantic problems in quality of life at these complexes in McKeesport owned by PNC Bank. So that's an example of a Right to Know that we had to put in, that resulted, I think, in a story. And PNC has promised to clean up these properties, and we're monitoring that closely. We were out there last week meeting with tenants again. How did I figure out how to write this Right to Know here? Well, you know, there's no magic to this. The state provides standard Right to Know request forms, which I really like to use. Some agencies will try to get me to use their own form, but I don't want to use their form. I know that if I use the state's form, they have to respect that. And why should I learn a new form every time I report on another agency? I'm going to go ahead and use the state forms. And again, we'll provide you with this link at the end. So I've talked a lot about resources you can use. Of course, we have a job too, and I don't want to, dump it all on you. We have a product I want to tell you a little bit about called Board Explorer, which we created in order to give people a quick way to get basic information on decision makers in their community. We took 60 boards, commissions, authorities, other panels that make decisions for either Pittsburgh or Allegheny County. These panels have something in the neighborhood of 500 members total. We put it all into a data platform. And now if you want to find out, say, who's making decisions for the Port Authority, if your bus is perennially late, you can find out that there is something called Port Authority. Here's its website. Here's when its board meets. And here are the members of the board. If you want to say, okay, Jeff Letwin, who is that guy? We have some basic information on him here. Among other things, you can see that he's an attorney and you can see his firm. We think that's important because you should be able, as the public, to determine whether a person's participation on a given board entails any conflicts of interest in relation to their work. And for a lot of these folks, we do provide you with contact information so that if you have concerns with this agency, you can reach out to them. You won't find me in there because I'm only on one board, and it's the Pitt News Advisory Board, which is not a public board. But let's try another Rich Fitzgerald. You can see all of the boards that Rich Fitzgerald serves on over here. All the major boards in any case. And another cool thing about Board Explorer is, say you want to understand in aggregate what this level of the power structure looks like. You can go to our Board Explorer site, boards.publicsource.org. You can go down here and you can see the ages of these board members, race or ethnicity, and genders. And one kind of fun thing you can do is you can say, okay, I don't want to see all the board members. I just want to see the ones appointed by the city. And you see that those skew young. Now I want to see the ones appointed by the county. Whoa, those definitely skew older and whiter. And now I want to see boards that are appointed in part by the city and in part by the county. Oh, wow, lots of experienced people there, and a different gender balance, dramatically different gender balance than the other boards, oddly enough. So you can play around with that anytime. There are something like 5,000 pieces of information in Board Explorer, and PublicSource fact checks these pieces of information. That said, if you go in here today, you are bound to find something that's outdated because there's constantly people moving onto these boards, moving off of these boards, changing jobs, changing neighborhoods of residence. And we really check that about quarterly. So you will see that Board Explorer is a moving target, but it's also an example of our dedication to checking the facts, making sure that we're presenting credible, accurate information. So I think that I'm going to get out of the screen share for a minute here. I think that kind of epitomizes something that Mila was discussing. You know, we are constantly surrounded by falsehoods that are buzzing around us like flies, but there are still ways to live in a fact-based world. And I hope these tools are helpful to you. And I also hope that if you go in and use these tools and you find something that you think the world should know about, that you consider checking in with us. We're always interacting with audience and getting lots of story ideas from the public. And I hope you have questions so I don't have to spend the rest of the time investigating Mila.
Right, Rich, there is one question from Michelle. Can any of these sites be used to find out who the landlord is for a commercial piece of property?
These sites, no, but I'm going to go ahead and pull one up that you can use. The Allegheny County has its assessment website, and if you haven't used that, it's not too bad. I will try to throw this into the mix and distribute it. You know, I'm not on screen share, am I?
No, you're not.
I better go back to screen share. Okay. Let's see. So this is the Allegheny County Real Estate Assessment website. And if you want to put an address into it, and it will burp out the name of the owner. I'm not going to put my own address in there, but I'll put in our office address. What the heck? And see who owns the office I'm sitting in. It doesn't like 5th. I'm going to go with 5TH. And there we go. Okay, that is a description of, that is indeed our address. That is indeed our landlord. And you can, that's basic information when the building was purchased and for how much. Here's some kind of vital info about the building itself, although there's not that much there. You can find out whether our landlord is paying taxes, and indeed our landlord is paying taxes. You can find out who our landlord bought the property from and for how much. Again, you can bring up an image and you can even pull up a map. So that's a really useful tool that I use all the time. One thing it doesn't allow you to do, you cannot search by name. So you can't put my name in here and find my home address. It used to have that, but the county council voted to take that off to avoid abuses. And if I want to say search for all of the properties owned by a given person, that's a tougher nut, although there are ways to do that. But this is a way to go from address to owner and get a lot of history of the property.
Rich, another question about the Board Explorer, specifically any plans to add Wilkinsburg to Board Explorer?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think we'll have to bring that up in our next meeting with our editors. We're always interested in expanding our products and expanding our geographical reach. In fact, we've got some things going now that involve expanding our geographical reach that I won't get into too much detail on, but we should definitely look at that. I'm going to say one thing: Board Explorer is a lot of work, so we'll talk about it. Great idea, though.
Rich, another question from Colin. If the city doesn't want to reveal information under right to know request because they say it is proprietary information, is there another way to find out that information that they will not reveal?
Let me stop the screen share for a minute. I mean, well, it depends. There are a lot of things that the city does not have to tell you under the law. They can't provide you with anything that would show public benefits flowing to individuals, for instance. There are a couple of gaping holes in our right to know law. For instance, governments are not required to provide you with a document that they view as pre-decisional. In other words, we hadn't made the decision yet on whether to give the developer the big subsidy. We were just talking about it among ourselves. It's pre-decisional. We don't have to give it to you, Rich. Some governments aggressively use the pre-decisional exemption, others don't. When I get stymied, I'm always, I do this professionally, and I've been doing it for a while. I'm always working sources, trying to find out what I need to know. If I'm reporting on the police department and the city won't talk to me, I might approach the police union. I might approach organizations that are monitoring police activity, police accountability organizations. I might look to court records to find out what court decisions have been generated. For instance, the city doesn't like to talk about personnel matters, but a lot of police personnel matters end up in the courts. So I'm immediately going to that Department of Court Records site I showed you and looking up City of Pittsburgh, Fraternal Order of Police, trying to search for court cases that might give me insight into a matter. But you are in a state, unlike some states, in which a vast quantity of government material is not subject to the Right to Know Act, and we as reporters fight every day to get around those barriers.
There was a justification. I guess the proprietary information justification that was used to not reveal information specifically about HQ2 and the proposal that the city and county put together to attract Amazon potentially to our region. And there were a lot of people filing right to know requests. There were some folks who just filed for the first page, just wanted to see a title page, and that the city revealed, but it ended up in courts. And ultimately, the information was shared pretty, in the press conference, but there were amicus briefs in between those processes, and a lot of just, OR filings, open Office of Open Records filings, and then Commonwealth court hearings. So just that was exactly proprietary information justification that was given to not reveal that information. I can see that a lot of people are interested, and municipalities are being part of the board Explorer specifically.
Oh, no.
We have Smithville and the Wilkinsburg fans who want to see the municipalities being part of Board Explorer. I mean, I think, it speaks to the challenge that everybody has, the governments and the journalists too. We hear all the time about the fact that, there are things going on in a smaller school district, or in a police department, in Ohio Township Police Department. And it's just really challenging because of fragmentation of our region to be everywhere, especially given that we are a very small team. And, to an earlier point that Rich made, that, it's just sometimes the capacity, like if you have a newsroom that has 100 plus people who are journalists and are covering it, you can't compare it with a dozen or so that are, trying to both figure out the how to run an organization, how to ensure its sustainability, also how to report on a lot of things in the middle of the pandemic, and also just increased fragmentation and the I think diminished capacity of local media outlets. If it's not exactly you have probably heard about news deserts conundrums that a lot of markets are dealing with. Actually, the Pittsburgh region is in better shape, but compared to 2 years ago, it's definitely the diminishing footprint of local media outlets is felt. And we hear a lot from smaller boroughs about the stories that are waiting to be covered. Any other questions that folks want to ask in the chat, or if you want, I'm not sure. I think it's a webinar, so I will not be able to let you unmute yourself. But I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Again, if you want to, we will be sharing with Jess all the websites that Rich went through in this presentation. They will be sent to the email with which you registered for this course. And again, if you want to follow our journalism, please visit publicsource.org. Are there any articles about misinformation? I'm happy to share some with Jess that she can include if you are looking for something generally about the hurdle of misinformation across the United States. I can definitely share those resources. We also we have in the past offered citizens toolkits on how to detect fake news or poorly substantiated stories on the web, and have also been, I am right now working with a school district and a librarian to see if we can test out a collaboration between local libraries and a news outlet like ours to teach teens and students in school districts on how to detect misinformation and use your critical thinking skills to be an informed resident. All right. Our community used to have an expert on researching house histories. Is there anyone that is currently doing this for people? Rich, do you know?
I don't know that, but it's a fascinating thing to do. As I showed you a minute ago, let me do the screen share again, I think. You can look up the current ownership of a house. Let's see, let's bring that back up. And you might notice that on the initial page of that information, there is a deed book number and a deed page number. These relate to actual books that sit in the county office building downtown on Ross Street. You can go to those books and you can pull that deed, and that deed will tell you where the prior deed was for the sale of that house. It'll show you that you have to now go back to book 5032, page 809. I think they're only about 600 pages each, but it will tell you where to go for the prior deed, and you can do that. You can physically open these gigantic books that smell like old dusty paper and look at these huge deeds going back to the early days of our county. So I don't know if anyone's doing it, but you can do it.
All right. Jess is also sharing a resource in the chat on how genealogy department at CLP can help. I think unless there are other questions, we are right with some 5 minutes left, but just the last plug that I'm gonna make for PublicSource, support local journalism, and read and share with your family members, colleagues, and friends about our work. And there are a lot of nonprofit, well, there are definitely, there's still good journalism happening in our region, and I hope you all consider supporting it, reading, and also having tools now to be your own investigators and I guess carry the spirit of being an engaged citizen from this class. Thanks again for spending time with us, and please feel free to get in touch with me. I'm at mila@publicsource.org, and Rich is at ICH at publicsource.org, Rich at publicsource.org. Thank you very much. And I think that's it.